The laughter hits first hard, bright, ricocheting off trophy glass and the metal ribs of a long hallway. It doesn't sound happy. It sounds like a lid slamming. Riverside High smells like lemon cleaner and cafeteria oil. Fluorescents tremble overhead. A thin, electric hiss. Nia Washington walks the seam between two tile squares, shoulders level, breath steady like. She's counting between rounds. She could be any new kid. Backpack neat, schedule folded into quarters. But her eyes clock exits. Clusters. The angle of a phone lens held chest high, and pretending to be harmless. Come on, Thompson fight back. The shout snaps from around the corner. A knot of bodies tightens in the corridor. Phones lifted like black mirrors. Through elbows and varsity sleeves, Nia catches a stutter of motion. A lanky boy with wire glasses, pinned to a locker by three broad silhouettes. His books fan across the floor. Pages skating under expensive sneakers. One cover flashes up at her advanced calculus before a heel stomps it shut. Speak up. The tall one in the letter jacket says, he's golden in that catalog way jaw, right? Hair correct, and he's smiling, which is worse than a snarl. We can't help you if you mumble. The kid tries to answer. It comes out foggy. Small, his hands are open, palms up, as if he's offering something he doesn't own. Nia's feet stop at the edge of the crowd. She smells cologne and warmed plastic. The seam of the tiles sits under her shoe like a drawn line. She doesn't step back. Back off him, she says, not loud. Flat, head swivel. The Letterman jacket turns toward the interruption he didn't schedule. His smile thins, the two boys flanking him, one red-haired and dense through the shoulders, the other wrestler short, with a boxer's wrists shift like they've practiced this formation since middle school. Look at that, the golden boy says, his tone polished to a political shine. A welcome party. Riverside's getting diversa. Phones tilt toward her as if the hall itself is a camera dolly. Nia's fingers loosen and close once. Tape memory. Beg mitts. Breathe in 4. Out 6. She keeps her chin tucked the way Coach taught her show. Nothing you'll have to take back. The redhead drags a sneaker over the calculus book until the paper veins. The wrestler type chuckles, a low heat in his chest, and leans past the golden boy to peer at Nia like she's a fish in a tank. What's your name? The golden one asks, widening that inauguration day grin. I'm Tyler Mitchell. The name lands like an introduction you were supposed to recognize. Nia doesn't give him the courtesy. Back off, she repeats. Tyler's eyes flicker. For a heartbeat, something true flashes there, irritation, a chip under the varnish. Then the smile returns. More careful. This is all friendly, he says, spreading his hands to show 10 clean fingers, just helping our buddy adjust. A snort runs through the circle, softened by laughter that wants to be cruel but is still practicing. The lanky kid swallows, throat moving in his slender neck, and tries to collect his backpack without breaking eye contact with anyone. Nia steps forward. The seam stays under her shoe. Let him go. Or what? Tyler asks, stepping to meet her. He doesn't crowd. He orbits, measuring distance, aware of how an audience changes gravity. Going to file a complaint. We take those very seriously here. The smile. Sometimes we all pay taxes. Right. Nia says, public hallways. Not your pasture. The wrestler boy chuckles again. The sound has dirt under it. Public doesn't mean anybody can. Tyler lifts a palm without looking. His guys stop mid-laugh, like dogs mid-leap. Relax, he tells them, still watching Nia. Then, to her, softer, you're new. It takes time to learn how we do things. How you do things, she says. He grins. Welcome to Riverside. The words could be, we own this zip code. He taps the lanky kid's shoulder, not hard, just enough for the flinch, then backs away, smiling for the phones. See you around. Thompson. The name hangs for a second, Thompson slides to the floor to scoop his calculus book, careful as if the paper's a living thing. Tyler's boys peel off with practiced indifference. As the crowd unknots, the hallway discovers it has other business. Noise returns in ripples, and the phones go dark, like eyes blinking after a show. Nia crouches. The lemon cleaner bites her nose. She slides a notebook toward the boy. "You good?" He nods, then nods again, as if the first one didn't count. Yeah, thanks." His voice tries to be even, and doesn't quite make it. He pushes his glasses up. They're smudged. He leaves them that way. "Nia," she says. "Jamal." He hugs his books to his ribs so his hands won't shake. "You're new." "Today," she says. His relief is a physical thing. Shoulders drop. He lets out a breath that sounds like someone opening a window. The bell chews the air. Doors spit students. Nia walks beside Jamal to his locker. A few paces of silence stretched between them, like a bridge you test before you run. The trophy case reflects them two figures, small and dark among silver cups, and in that ghost glass, for half a second, they stand side by side. Equal as trophies, at Jamal's locker, the dial sticks. He works it patient slow, numbers under his breath, the way of someone who knows that mistakes cost. The metal squeals. Inside, a photocopy flutters down like a joke dropped from a balcony. Nya doesn't look at it. Jamal hesitates. Then folds the paper smaller, until it's a piece of white gravel in his palm. He doesn't throw it away. He tucks it behind his phone case. Saving proof is a habit you learn early or never. "They've been on you long?" she asks. 3 years, Jamal says. His mouth moves around the number like it might cut him. He glances toward the far end of the hall. Tyler's there, of course. He is leaning into a girl's laugh, one elbow hooked over a trophy case like it's his porch rail. "Teachers?" Nia asks. Jamal shrugs. "The move is a whole weather system. They don't see much. Principal says I should try to fit in. Smile more." "Right," Nia says. She can feel her pulse in her gum. She flexes her fingers once, and the shake in them makes her mad. She shoves a hand into her pocket to keep the anger where it belongs, for now. They split for first period. Inside the classroom, sunlight drags a pale shadow of the blinds onto the floor. Tyler sits 3 rows back with his flanks, tapping a pen, grinning at nothing in particular. He doesn't look at Nia. He doesn't need to. Presence is a kind of look. "Mrs." Kent hands out syllabi. The paper rasp sounds too loud. Nia reads the heading, "Welcome to American Lit," while she watches. In the glass pane of the door, Tyler leans to whisper. His mouth moves. His boys nod. Nia doesn't hear the words, but she recognizes choreography. The first time an opponent studies you, it looks like flirting. Later, it looks like math. At lunch, the cafeteria smells like microwave cheese. Air vents blow unevenly, so one corner is Arctic and another damp. The center table, Tyler's, has a radius the assistants don't mop close to. Around it, conversation forms eddies. People laugh facing inward. A circle of backs as polite as velvet rope. Nia and Jamal take a spot near the wall under a vent that breathes cold on their necks. Jamal eats with careful motions, opening his juice with his sleeve so the label won't slip in his sweat. Nia watches the doors the way you watch a bell that could ring at any second. He says, "You don't have to." "I know," Nia says. She stabs a fork into something calling itself pasta bake. "But I do." He nods as if that checks a box he didn't know he had. The first bump is accidental, a tray edge kissing Nia's shoulder. The second is surgical, the redhead sliding a chair back into Nia's shin as he laughs at Tyler's joke about nothing. She ignores both. Jamal looks down, jaw tight. When he looks up, his glasses have slid to the end of his nose. He doesn't fix them. It's a choice. Tyler strolls over without his tray, hands free like a man with people to carry things for him. "New kid," he says to Nia, as if they haven't met. "How's Detroit?" The room tilts to listen without looking. "Far?" Nia says. "Bet," he says. and lets the word dangle. We do things a little different here. You'll pick it up. He touches the back of Jamal's chair. Just a brush. Testing the varnish. You two friends already. That's sweet. Jamal grips his plastic fork like it might stand in for a spine. Nia shifts her heel onto the seam in the floor. Balance. Center. Don't give weight away unless you're trading up. Enjoy your lunch. Tula says, and taps the table twice like he's stamping it. He goes back to the center table and sits, spanning his knees wider than necessary. The boys beside him arrange their bodies to match mirrors, making a tunnel. The rest of lunch. Nothing happens. But it happens loudly. Laughter blooms and dies in certain directions. A grape rolls past Nia's shoe toward the drain and disappears with a soft, satisfied sound. Outside the windows, the flag lifts once and hangs. Inside, the clock is 2 minutes fast. The day drags itself to last bell. The hallway is a river again. Then a trickle, then a stream of quiet. Nia opens her locker and breathes the cold metal smell. A sticky note is folded and wedged against the back wall. She unfolds it. 4 words. Printed block neat. We see you now. She looks right. Then left. Nothing. An empty drinking fountain gurgles like a throat clearing. A flyer flaps on the corkboard prom. A night under the stars. In script, so curvy, it looks like a smirk. Under it, last year's photo. 9 bright smiles. One moment preserved in plastic. All the faces are the same color. Jamal appears beside her without sound. He's good at that, approaching like a quiet thought. My mom says document everything, he says, not looking at the note in her hand. Pictures. Dates. The names of anyone who hears and pretends they didn't. Coach used to say the same, Nia says. He tilts his head. Coach. Boxing, she says, and to her surprise the word feels like water. Jamal studies her hand, the tendon that lifts when you clench. He nods like he's learning a new variable and where to put it. Then he glances toward the front steps where sunlight hammers the glass. Tyler is out there already, framed by doors, laughing with someone Nia doesn't know. The laugh sounds like a car starting. You don't have to, Jamal starts again. Yeah, she says. I do. They walk out into the bright together. The air smells like cut grass and hot rubber. A bus grinds its brakes and sighs. Somewhere a whistle blows for track practice. A sharp sound that pricks the day open. Nia stops at the top stair and looks down at the concrete landing where the sun turns the handrail to a line of fire. She places her palm on it anyway. Heat stings. She doesn't move. This isn't over, Jamal says softly. And he means today, and he means last year, and he means all of it. Nia watches Tyler toss his keys and catch them without looking. The keys flash like a tiny signal mirror. She studies the little red dot of a phone held across the drive. Its tally light fixed on someone else. She feels the seam under her shoe even here. Invisible in concrete. She decides which side of it is hers. Good, she says. The word is quiet. Almost a breath. It hangs between them, small and heavy. Then she steps off the stair and into the parking lot, eyes adjusting to the sun. Shoulders loose, face unhurried, like she's walking toward a bell that hasn't rung yet but will. Morning lays a pale seam of light down the hallway, a chalk line across the waxed tile. Nia steps on it as if it's a tightrope, bag snug to her shoulder, breath counting the distance between heartbeats. Lockers yawn. The vents cough awake. Riverside smells like powdered soap and burned toast from somewhere far away. Jamal is already at his locker. He stands like a man trying not to be seen. Shoulders closed. Elbows tight. The way people make themselves smaller on crowded trains, he works the dial slow, lips shaping numbers. When it finally gives, a photocopy flutters out and lands face down between their shoes. He doesn't pick it up. Not yet. Rough night, she says. Didn't sleep. He says, voice a shade above a whisper. Kept hearing that laugh in my head. The one he does when he's pretending to be nice. She waits. My mom says document everything. He lifts the photocopy after all. folds it into a square without opening it, tucks the square behind his phone case like a pressed leaf. Dates. Times. Names of people who didn't see. The air quotes are a flick of fingers that barely move. Works. Nia says, the words come out even. Sometimes. He nods gratefully, as if she's just agreed to something rich and unspoken. Down the hall. Shoes slap til. The crowd parts without looking like it's parting. Tyler arrives bracketed by Connor and Brad, still wearing that manufactured ease. The kind of confidence that comes from never having to wonder if he belongs. His leather jacket creaks when he lifts his arms, leather and thread, and old touchdowns. Well, he says. Morning. Study Bullies. They plant themselves between Nia and first period, phones pause in other hands. The hallway goes soft around the edges, like a stage waiting on its cue. How's orientation treating you? Washington. Tyler's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Find the good bathrooms. The ones with the hand dryers that don't sound like jet engines. Got a map, she says. Detroit girls are resourceful, he says, and leans his shoulder on Jamal's locker like he paid for it. And Thompson, you look chipper. Late night. Calculus party. Jamal stares at the latch, not at Tyler. His knuckles go bloodless around his book. Connor's red hair catches the fluorescence. The freckles across his nose make him look younger than he talks. We should take a picture, he says lightly. For the alumni newsletter, diversity initiatives coming along. Brad clicks his tongue, eyes sliding over Nia like he's sizing a bag of groceries. You know what'd be fire? Thompson dropping some bars. Get the culture going. Nia can't help it. A short laugh cracks out before she kills it. He's top of the class, she says. Bars aren't extra credit. Tyler DSKS. Why so hostile? We're being friendly, aren't we? Boys. The boys lands heavy. Friendly. Connor repeats with that rubber smile. Tyler raises his phone. The lens stares back. A black coin. Say something for the archives, he says. First week of the new narrative. No, Jamal says, small but audible. Tyler tilts his head in theatrical confusion. Don't be shy. He pats Jamal's shoulder hard enough to jolt him forward. You know, you're a real credit to. Don't, Nia says, and it comes out flat and final. For a beat, nobody breathes. The hallway hums. Somewhere a copy machine ticks like a metronome. Tyler spreads his hands. A picture of innocence. Hey, we're all friends here. His eyes cut to the watching phone, then back. I'm student body president. It's literally my job to check in. Your job is planning pep rallies. Nia says, leadership scales. He says with a grin, you'll learn. The bell scalds the air. Doors start catching and closing. Tyler pulls his hand from Jamal's locker. Prints of his fingers fogging the metal where the warmth of his skin met the cold of the door. Don't be late, he says. We don't like truancy. It looks like giving up. He drifts off, flanked by his satellites, a little orbit trailed by glances, and the whisper creak of leather. The absence of him makes a noise. Jamal lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He fixes his glasses, the motion practiced, the tenderness of someone who has repaired this particular pair more than once. Thanks, he says. For what? For not making it worse. Nia thinks of all the times she didn't swing, of the bruise you get from carrying a punch in your bones. Not yet, she says quietly. In lit, Mrs. Kent reads Frost-likey dangerous. The room smells like dry paper. Light lays bars across desks through the blind. Nia feels eyes pinprick her skin and keeps her gaze on the margin of her book where someone else carved initials and a slow, patient spiral. The spiral is a tunnel. If you stare long enough, you can fall. The second act of the day happens at lunch, but not in the cafeteria. They slip to the library instead, to a corner table beneath a vent that sighs like a sleeping animal. Dust hangs in the light. Each mote, a tiny comet. The carpet is old and high-piled. The pattern, a series of diamonds that don't quite meet. There's a seam where two squares misalign one row of diamonds, half a shade darker. Nia rests her sneaker on that misfit edge, like it's a marker. "You always eat here?" she asks. "When I can," Jamal says, easier to breathe. The librarian at the desk checks them over her glasses and then doesn't check them again. A printer coughs once, a kid in the stacks sneezes, and tries to swallow the sound. On the end cap, a prom poster leans crooked, the glossy paper reflecting the fluorescent hum. A sketched skyline under white script promises a night under the stars. Every star is a hole-punch circle. Someone shook over black ink. "You going?" Nia asks before thinking about what she's asking. Jamal's mouth twitches. "To what exactly?" "Watching. It's not really for." He doesn't finish the sentence. He pinches it off and rewraps it in a smile. "Prom's an ecosystem. I'm plankton. Plankton feeds whales," Nia says. He huffs a laugh. Something like relief crosses his features, like a breeze over a pond. "You don't have to be funny at me." "I'm not trying," she says. "That's just science." For a stretch they eat, and the sound is simple. The whisper of napkin paper, the click of a juice box straw, the soft mutter of a copy machine dying and resurrecting. Quiet presses around them, not like a threat, but like a wall you can lean on. Jamal says, after a while, he's going to do something bigger. He doesn't know how to let things go. He'll talk first. Nia says, "Guys like that, like the build-up, guys like that." He echoes and nods. Fifth period. The walk between classes drips with heat from the vents. The hallway's brightness feels aggressive. Nia keeps to the left, brushing the lockers with her sleeve, counting breaths, counting steps, giving herself a rhythm that isn't his. A paper curls on the floor in front of the drinking fountain, the edge lifting and settling with the draft from a closing door. That useless wave looks like someone trying to keep time with a song they can't hear. He finds them again near the science wing. No big announcement this time. Tyler slides into the shape of their path like he's always been there. Connor's laughter hits early. A lure thrown into the water. "Hey, Thompson," Tula says, "you know our robotics team is recruiting. You'd crush it. Could build us a drone for oversight?" Jamal doesn't rise. He shoulders his backpack up a notch. Tyler tilts his head. "You should smile more. Try it yourself," Nia says. He turns the smile on full, polished to a shine, then lets it drop like a coin that shows heads both sides. "You don't understand the social dynamics yet," he says, tone parental. "There's a way things work." "I hear that a lot," Nia says, "usually from people who like the way things work." Brad steps closer than polite. "A fraction, too much heat. Cologne and gym soap. We're just helping the new kid acclimate," he says. "School spirit. Spirit's a ghost that only scares some people," Nia says. Tyler's eyes are bright, teeth bared in a grin that doesn't touch humor. "Careful," he murmurs. "Wouldn't want anyone to think you're angry." The word lands like a slur in a suit. Nia feels the old warmth climb her forearms, the animal hum that says moo, strike, end. It has a voice. "Now." She lets it speak. Then she puts a hand on it and presses until it's muffled. But alive. The seam is under her heel again. A thin line of grout. She plants. They hold there a tableau with breath until the warning bell frees everyone. The crowd moves. Tyler leans in like he might say something human, then doesn't. "See you," he says instead, almost gentle. Then he goes. Last period dumps them into afternoon. The sky is a hard blue lid. Heat bakes the asphalt into that sweet tar smell. That means summer is somewhere up ahead. Nia's phone buzzes with nothing. Jamal's buzzes with two something. He doesn't check them. He keeps his eyes on the exit and the short rectangle of shadow thrown by the doorway. A dark seam between bright and brighter. "Do you?" he starts. "Yeah," she says. "Walk." They take the side path where the landscaping gave up. Mulch grays. Cigarette ends half buried like the tails of something trying to burrow away. As Sprinkler hisses at nobody behind the gym, the wall throws off heat like a sleeping animal. At the corner, they stop. No reason, just the body telling them to. The quiet here is sticky. No cars, no whistles, even the flag forgets to move. Through an open door somewhere, a washing machine thumps. Steady as heartbeat. You ever feel like you're standing in the gap between what people think about this place and what it is? Jamal asks. It comes out too sudden, like he surprised himself. All the time, Nia says, "What do you do with that?" "Make myself a line," she says, "then stand on it." He nods again, that grateful, breathless nod. And something in his posture shifts a millimeter. It's not much, it's everything. When she gets home, she wraps her hands and hits her heavy bag in the garage until the leather warms under her knuckles. The garage smells like oil and summer rain dried on concrete. A long strip of sun sneaks under the door and lays a bright seam across the floor. She moves along it like it's the top rope of a ring. Jab, cross, breathe. The beat steadies, then zings. She stops only when sweat tracks salt through her eyebrows and stings her eyes. Hands on knees. She looks at the tape on her knuckles gone dark with scuff. The line of sun has shifted, stepped back, really thinner now, richer in color, like gold leaf. She stands in it and lets it cut her shadow in half. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. "See you, city girl." A second later, smile for the cameras. She exhales. The sound is half laugh, half locked, door opening. Then she writes the text down in a notebook, the time, the number, the exact phrasing, and closes the cover with a soft thump. On the way to her room, she passes the hall mirror. The face in it looks calm. The eyes are not. She lifts her hand. The tape peels from her skin in one long spiral, like a ribbon coming off a gift you don't want but will use later. When the house goes quiet, she lies awake and listens to the air conditioner hum. The vent breathes cool into the dark. The ceiling cracks form a pale river overhead, a map drawn by time. She traces one with her gaze to the corner where wall meets wall. A joint, so clean, it looks like a decision. That's where she plants herself. In the thin places between bright and shadow, where seams hold things together and tell you where to press. The day starts with tape. Blue painter's tape runs a crisp seam across the auditorium floor, marking where couples are supposed to queue for tickets. It glows under the stage lights like a runway in miniature. Nia steps over it, the tacky edge catching her sneaker for a heartbeat, then letting go. On stage, a banner droops from one side, a star dangling by a single thread of fishing line that keeps flashing in the hot light and then going dull again. The room smells like dust warmed by bulbs. The speakers hiss under a student council kid's voice. "A night under the stars," he says twice. The second time is softer, like he doesn't buy it either. Nia slides into the last row. Jamal's already there, hands folded on a closed notebook, trying to look like he belongs to the chair. He doesn't look at the stage so much as past it, eyes fixed on the slit of light where the curtain doesn't quite meet the wall. "You came," she says. "My AP teacher took attendance." He says, "Civic duty." A glitter confetti cannon pops on stage and releases a feeble cough of silver. The pieces fall lazily, turning over and over, little mirrored scales trying on different colors as they drop. One lands on Jamal's sleeve and holds there. He doesn't brush it off. Tyler is down front with the mic, laughing with the DJ about playlists and tradition. He looks good in pools of attention, like the light knows his angles. The laugh echoes in the rafters and comes back a shade sharper. He glances up the aisle, and his gaze finds the back row like it's been taught the map. His smile widens just enough. "Are you serious about going?" Jamal asks. He says it while studying the curtain gap. "You sounded serious. Serious enough to show up." She says, "Serious enough to get a dress if I have to." "You don't have to. You know, it isn't an out. It's a weather report." She reaches toward his sleeve, flicks off the silver flake. watches it snag in the static on her fingertip. It winks. She blows it away. I know, she says. I want to. The assembly spills back into the hall like water freed from a dam. The hallway remembers it's a hallway, metal lockers. Disinfectant sting. Fluorescent wine. Nia and Jamal walk it like a current is pushing against their knees. Halfway to the math wing, a trio peels out from a classroom doorway and fills the corridor to legal capacity. Good morning, scholars. Tu le sais, he's easy. He's always easy, until he isn't. Connor's laugh snaps at the end of the phrase like a little trap. Busy man. Nia says, making sure your event has enough stars. Stars are self-selecting. He says, they shine or they don't. Brad drifts too close, shoulder grazing Jamal's backpack. Hey, Thompson, he murmurs, if you need help tying a tie, my dad runs a clinic for that kind of thing. Cool, Jamal says without heat. He teach you to read the word no to. It surprises everyone, including him. Brad blinks. Slow. Tyler's smile clicks tighter. Nerves. He says to no one. Prom does that? Could be the lights. Nia says, watching his eyes, because his eyes are where the tells live. Very bright today. Transparency is good. He returns. Prevents misunderstandings. The bell saves the conversation from pretending to be anything but what it is. Doors suck them in with little vacuums of pressure. The corridor empties so fast it feels staged. After last period, the heat steps up. The sun lays a bleached line along the sidewalk, and crossing it is like an insult. The air tastes like rubber and unspooled tape. Nia drives a little too fast with the windows down, letting the wind beat the day off her skin. The steady drone of the freeway becomes a blanket that doesn't entirely cover her. Iron Will Boxing sits between a muffler shop and a shuttered bodega, the storefront painted the color of a bruise that's almost healed. A strip of duct tape seals a crack in the door's bottom pane, a silver seam collecting dirt, and a fine line of kicked-up gravel. She touches it as she goes in, the glue warm under her finger. Inside, the gym hums. Jump ropes slap in syncopation. The ring's ropes sag and then spring as a kid, throws himself at them and rebounds. Learning to love the give, sweat hangs in the air and softens it. A tang of rubber mat and old leather. Somewhere a radio sings an old song with a bright hook and a mean verse. Back for more, Martinez says, watching from a stool like a lifeguard, watches the shallow end. He's big without having to try. Scar on his eyebrow makes his left eye look like it's always telling the truth. I brought my hands, Nia says. Good. The heavy bag missed them. He nods at the tape-wrapped cylinder in the corner. Scars crisscross its face. White seams where it was restitched after somebody tried to take out their life on it. She raps. The cotton runs around her knuckles and across her palm. A little ritual rope she climbs into herself. The end tucks under the last pass with a satisfying bite. She hits to find the rhythm again. Jab, jab, cross. The bag jumps and swings back, a metronome that never forgets. Martinez watches her feet. You heard what I said last time, he says, only when her breath can carry words. About your boy. I heard. You thinking I meant start fights. I'm thinking you meant finish them. On your terms, he considers. Head tilted. I meant, don't drown waiting for the lifeguard. She throws a hook. Feels it travel from the floor to her hip, to her shoulder, to her fist. The sound when it lands is deep enough to be music. He's never been in a fight. He's been in a fight every day. Martinez says, he just hasn't been allowed to swing yet. She stops. The bag drifts and returns like it's missing her. You teach him. Sure, he says. If he walks in on his own feet, she nods and goes back to the bag. He lets her. Sweat runs along her spine in two clear lines. Breath reorders. The gym becomes the only real room on earth. When she leaves, the afternoon has gone from white to gold. The duct tape seam on the door blazes a little in the slant sun. edges lifting like the corner of a stuck postcard. She presses it flat as she passes, palms it down like a promise. Jamal answers on the fourth ring. There's a clatter in the background cutlery, and then quiet. "Hey," he says, "you busy?" "I can multitask terror and homework." A brittle joke. It's funny enough to loosen something small in her chest. "I found a place," she says. "It's not shiny. It smells like work." Guy runs. It is named Martinez. He doesn't speak. She can hear his breathing. He breathes like he's counting in fours. "You want me to learn to fight," he says finally. "I want you to learn not to fold." The school doesn't. We know that. The colleges like grit, so I've been told. He doesn't laugh. She hears a pencil tap. "I don't want to be a different person." "Me neither," she says. "I like who you are." Silence again. Not empty. Full of circles closing. "My mom would have a heart attack," he says. "My dad would give a lecture on liability." "Invite them," she says. "Coach has waivers." "You're kidding." "A little." She leans against her bedroom wall and looks at the thin seam of light under her door. The bright line that the hallway lays at night when the house believes itself asleep. Dust drifts in it like soft snow you see but can't touch. "I don't know if I can hit someone," he says quietly. "That's fine," she says. "We'll teach your feet to move first." He exhales into the phone. She hears the sound come through the tiny speaker like a wave that has traveled a long way to break at her ear. "What if I freeze?" he asks. "Then you breathe," she says. "In on 2, out on 4. You like counting." In the pause that follows, she hears the house around him, the dishwasher hum, a clock giving up one small tick, a distant television arguing about something important to people who will never know his name. She gives him the time to run all the calculations. He always runs all the calculations. It's part of what's going to save him. "When?" he says. "Tomorrow," she says. "After school." "Okay," he says, and the word doesn't wobble. "I'll bring—" "What do I bring?" "Shoes you can move in," she says, "and the part of you that's tired." After they hang up, she texts the address. He responds with a thumbs up. Then a second later, another bubble appears. "What if I throw up?" She smiles despite herself. "Only reply with the truth. You won't be the first." That night the temperature drops, and the house creaks as it adjusts to the new weight of cool. The streetlight outside her window lays a white blade across her ceiling. She lies under it, not quite in it. Sleep comes slow. It brings with it a dream of a hallway that narrows to a keyhole, and a janitor's cart, and a seam in the floor where two tiles meet and don't, and she stands there, balancing on it like a wire, feeling it hold. At school the next day, they don't talk about it. That's the rule people like them learn early. Say the thing once, then act like it doesn't own you. Chemistry lab smells like vinegar and faint smoke, Bunsen burners and blue fire. Nia keeps her hands busy. Jamal keeps his eyes on the meniscus in a beaker like it's a horizon he can control. Between classes, there's a quiet beat in the stairwell where nobody goes. The light there is a different color, greener, filtered through wire glass that warps faces into soft, underwater versions. Footsteps echo, and then don't. She touches the cinder block wall. It's cool. Her palm remembers the heavy bag. Later, she tells herself, not here. By afternoon, the sky flattens to a bare plate. The air tastes like pennies. They walk to the lot without speaking, passing the chain-link fence with zip ties, cinching a tier together, white stitches across metal. Connor and Brad linger by the BMW. Tyler nowhere. Their posture is loose in that practiced way, knees bent, hands empty. As Nia and Jamal pass, Connor does a slow clap with a grin he didn't earn. By night for practice. "Whew," he says, "gotta limber up for the big dance." Bench pressing expectations. Brad adds, "He looks proud of that one." Nia doesn't give them her head. She keeps her face aimed at the far curb, where a faded crosswalk paints a ladder of white lines across asphalt, worn down to aggregate. She steps on each bar like a kid avoiding lava. Jamal says nothing. He does something else instead. Shoulders back a fraction, chin up a centimeter. The change is small. The change is a declaration. They keep walking. The boy's laughter splits the warm air and falls in pieces. Traffic thins out on the way to the gym. The radio plays a pop song that keeps trying to stick. Nia hums the wrong harmonies. Jamal cracks the window and watches power lines draw straight, endless lines across sky. The neatest math the city makes. When they get to Iron Will, Martinez watches them come through the door and doesn't smile. He doesn't not smile either. He wipes his hands on a towel that's seen things and tosses it to a hook. "You the friend," he says to Jamal. "Name." "Jamal," he says, and points to his chest, like he's making sure. "Shoes," Martinez says. "Tie them tight. Loose laces get you killed." The room holds a quiet beat as Jamal kneels to double knot. The knot trembles in his hands, then sits. "Good," Martinez says. "Now we learn to stand." For the next hour, Jamal doesn't hit anything. He learns where his feet live. He learns that his knees aren't treason. He learns his breath can be a rope he throws across a gap and uses to pull himself over. He shakes. He doesn't quit. Nia works the bag in the corner. Between her combinations, she watches him in the ring. He looks like a man stepping onto a moving train. First try. He gets one foot up and the other foot panics. Second try. He moves with it. By the third, the train doesn't look so fast. Midway through, Martinez stops him with a raised hand. The ring goes quiet, except for the squeak of his shoes on canvas. "Feel the floor," Martinez says. "It won't lie to you." Jamal closes his eyes and spreads his toes inside his shoes like they're trying to read Braille. His shoulders drop. The tiny tremor in his right hand eases. He inhales and finds the count again. "Okay," Martinez says, "now put your hands where they belong." They break only when the gym's old wall clock hiccups past 6. On the mat, the white logo in the center wears a scar of duct tape across one corner, where time tore it, and someone decided repair was better than replacement. The silver strip catches the last of the sun that sneaks in low through the dirty windows. It looks like a stripe on a road to somewhere you haven't seen yet. Nia peels her wraps off in long spirals and hands Jamal a fresh roll. He touches the cloth like it might bite. It goes around, not across. She says, "You're not fixing yourself to something. You're keeping bones where they belong." He nods, a short nod, all business, and starts winding. The white cloth draws a clean line over brown skin, a seam that isn't hiding a break, but defining a shape. He tucks the end under with a small, stubborn grin. "You won't be the first," she says, and he glances at her like she wrote his text before he sent it. They share water by the door, while the fan rattles overhead and the smell of rubber gets heavier with the cooling air. Outside, the gold has turned thin and clear. The duct tape on the windowpane edge flutters once in a small breeze, then holds. "Tomorrow?" he asks. "Tomorrow," she says. They step out into the evening. The sidewalk is cracked where roots push up from underneath. Lines like lifelines in a palm. Nia toes one with her shoe, testing the give, then lets it be. The day lays a long seam of shadow down the middle of the street, a dark ribbon between lit houses. They walk it together without saying they are. The trouble starts in the stairwell. A strip of yellow caution tape hangs loose from the rail. It's adhesive black with fingerprints and air. The light here is green through wired glass, a fish tank glow that turns faces soft and unfamiliar. Nia reaches the landing and sees Jamal one flight below, hemmed in by Connor and Brad, their shoulders a wall wide enough to reroute traffic that pretends it didn't see. "Field trip," Brad says. His breath smells like mint gum chewed to death. His hands stay open, palms out, like he could be helpful at any moment if the world would only ask him right. Jamal's back touches the cold cinder block and stays there, eyes on the bend of Brad's elbow instead of his mouth. "Move," Nia says. The word is small, like a tapping coin. It lands anyway. Connor glances up, a snap of red hair and a sweep of a smile that never gets to his eyes, and steps sideways the width of his sneaker. The opening is surgical. We're talking study habits. He says, yeah. Brad adds, like whether Thompson's got any. He says it light. Like a joke, the fluorescent buzz might overhear and laugh at too. But his stance is set to shove. Then study this, Nia says, and shifts just enough that her left foot kisses the tape line, scabbed to the edge of the step. She doesn't square up. She doesn't even make a fist. She just looks at Jamal's hands flat, steady, knuckles soft under the skin, and then at Connor's shoes, lace loose, double-knotted badly, ends frayed like cheap rope. For a second, nobody breathes, and the quiet moves between them like a small animal that won't be coaxed out. Tyler appears above them. He descends like he's trying on the role of rescuer, voice pitched for an audience that exists in his head, if not on the landing. Boys, he says, smooth. Don't crowd the traffic. Connor leans back a fraction. Brad's mouth tightens into something almost relieved. Jamal slides along the wall and slips past, the edge of his backpack rasping the painted block, the sound dry and small, like a match that failed to light. See you in civics. Tyler tells Nia. He lets the sentence hang a beat too long, turns his head so the wire glass stripes his face in neat rectangles of light and shadow, and takes the stairs down with the deliberate ease of someone who knows floors move out of his way. After school, the air outside is a dull metal you can taste. Martinez draws a chalk line on the gym floor with the sideways nub he keeps in the pocket of his hoodie. It's bright and fragile and perfectly straight until the texture of the old wood steals little bites from it. This is your river, he says. You cross it and you drown. Jamal stands with his toes at the edge of that white seam, shoulders square and not, breath climbing a small flight of stairs inside his chest. The ring is all hum and rope creak and rubber stink. Someone on the speed bag makes a sound like rain drilled into order. Nia leans against the post and wraps her hands, the tape whispering as it smooths over her skin. Back foot stays dry. Martinez says, front foot tests the water. Jamal steps and steps back. He looks at his feet like he's been assigned them recently. Sweat finds the curve at his temple and holds there until gravity consults and agrees. Breathe, Nia says. He does. The chalk line makes a soft squeal under the rubber of his sole, an honest sound that says nothing but what happened. He keeps moving until dull becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes a language no one can take from him without getting hit. At home that night, he soaks his hands in cold water and says nothing about why. Doctor. Thompson passes through the kitchen, humming a tune that used to be a lullaby and is now something like armor, and pauses when she sees the ice, her mouth opening and then closing again with a decision. Too much violin practice? She says. Physics. Jamal says, I'm trying to see if time slows down when you're miserable. She laughs, the sound quick and sharp. If it does, high school is proof. Her fingers graze the seam in the wooden table where the leaf goes in at Thanksgiving, an old line with crumbs hiding in it, and she wipes it once with her thumb like she can erase division with pressure. They don't talk about what the boys said in the stairwell. They don't talk about careful. They talk about the way sugar burns faster than salt, and she watches him as if chemistry can tell her what else is mixing in him she can't name. The next morning, the light is thin and precise. They start buying proof small. Nia shows Jamal how to set the camera in his backpack so its eye looks through mesh like a kid behind a screen door. Polite and invisible. You're not a spy, she says. You're a witness who's tired. He nods like he's filing it. In the hallway by the trophy case, Tyler's voice slips out of a knot of letter jackets and finds them. Morning. Scholars, he says, and the word hangs there again like a thing he owns. The little red recording dot never blinks. It doesn't have to. Connor asks if Jamal's parents let him out without a leash. Brad wonders if Detroit sidewalks teach different kinds of math. Tyler laughs in the right places and adjusts his cuff in the reflection of a glass case that holds a runner's baton nobody remembers holding. A teacher walks by with coffee and sees everything and says nothing with the care of a man who wants no trouble in his last year before retirement. Afterward, they find a quiet audio lab in the back of the library where the carpet kills footsteps on arrival. The room is small and feels like the inside of a headphone. They play the clips with the speakers low. It counsels of breath and muffled threats. The jokes that look like jokes until someone's eyes tell you the punchline is the punch. Jamal watches the sound waves roll and break on the monitor. Neat blue hills of cruelty that would look like music to someone who didn't understand English. This isn't proof to them, he says. He doesn't say who them is. He doesn't have to. Nia scrubs through to a moment where Tyler lowers his voice and enunciates a phrase that will fit on paper. It lands with a click. "It is to me," she says. The librarian knocks and opens the door with her whole body, the way people do when they want you to know they're harmless. Sloane Whitaker from Yearbook stands behind her with a camera on a strap and a face that is trying to be neutral and curious at once. "We need the room at 3. The librarian says, "We'll be gone," Nia says. Sloane lingers. The camera at her hip taps her thigh like a nervous hand. "He's going to go nuclear," she says, eyes on the floor tiles, where one square doesn't match the others. A pale patch like a healed scar. Tyler. Her voice makes the name sound like a brand she's been asked to model in exchange for invisible credit. "We were there when he tested the bomb," Nia says. Sloane looks up, some calculation running. "I'm not your friend," she says. "I'm just saying. Be smart. Always our plan," Nia says. Sloane leaves without using the camera once. The librarian closes the door like it might break. In the quiet afterward, a printer somewhere in the building starts and stops and throws a single page into a tray with a polite cough. At lunch, they cross the courtyard, where the dead grass has been fenced into survival with a white nylon rope. The rope sags between metal posts, a low boundary nobody cares about until someone crosses it. On a table near the doors, the prom committee sells tickets in a stream of polite transactions that work because they usually do. The roll of paper wristbands gleams with its perforated edge, a clean tear waiting to happen. "Name," the girl asks, chewing a pen cap. "Nia Washington." Nia says. The girl hesitates just long enough to be a message, and then writes anyway. The marker squeaks. "Themes under the stars," she offers. "Dress codes on the flyer. We can read," Nia says, and hears it land too hard, and lets it stand exactly where it landed. Jamal's name comes out of his mouth flat and even. The girl writes slower. A boy behind them whispers, not that quiet, about brave and about spectacle. And someone else snorts, like they agree with physics. 2. Nia says, "Together." The girl doesn't look up. That's how couples work, just making it plain. Nia says. When they move away from the table, Tyler steps into the path without needing to look where he's going because people have been clearing it for him since he learned the habit of walking in hallways. "Tradition," he says, gesturing at the banner fluttering over the door where one corner keeps coming loose from its tape and then getting pressed down again by an obedient hand. "Tradition's just a story with a budget," Nia says. He smiles that practice smile that could be on a brochure if you didn't know what the edges feel like. "You'll love the ending," he says. "Low. Everyone always does. You keep using everyone like it's a fact," she says. The wristbands scratch their skin like cat tongues as they put them on. The perforation line runs along the inside of Nia's wrist, where pulse lives. A pale, dotted road she could tear without looking if she needed to. She doesn't tear it. She lets it sit and glow like a small bracelet of permission they had to buy. By the time the last bell rings, the sky has gone. the color of dull coins you keep in a cup for laundry. They go to the gym because routine keeps you human. Martinez holds the mitts and lets Jamal find the shape of a simple 1 to 2 without shame. The fan clacks overhead like a metronome with a bad joint. Sweat turns footprints into dark ovals across the mat, each one a small proof of someone's weight. You look less like you're about to faint. Nia says, if I pass out, donate my body to physics. He says, breathy, and grins when her snort gets swallowed by the sound of leather on leather midway through rounds. A kid no one knows to fear drifts near the door and glances in the way teenagers glance when they're fishing without a line. Martinez clocks him with that left eye that sees everything and nothing at once, and the kid moves on as if he hadn't meant to stop. When they leave, the light is thin and horizontal, cutting the street into parallel bands of gold and gray. At the curb, Nia's phone vibrates with the short, mean stutter of an unknown number. The text is a photo taken from across the street, grainy but sure, of the gym's glass door. The duct tape strip along the bottom pane shows in it like a scar, silver and stubborn. Underneath, 3 words, "We see you." Her hand doesn't shake. Her thumb hovers over the reply field and then falls away like a fighter who learned when not to swing. She shows Jamal. He goes very still, the way deer go still when they haven't decided whether the danger is a shadow or a shape. "Good," she says, and her voice is calm enough to startle both of them. Now we know where the line is. On the walk to the car, they stay on the seam between shadow and light, like kids balancing on a curb. Somewhere behind them, a screen door closes with that flat slap that means somebody's home. The tape on the gym window shivers once in a small wind and holds. The cafeteria is a grid, white tiles cross-hatched with gray grout, tables folding like chessboards, fluorescent tubes buzzing in straight lanes overhead. A thin red LED winks inside the mesh of Jamal's backpack like a heartbeat. He's decided to keep quiet. He stands just left of center, where lines meet, where the view is clean, normal. Nia murmurs. Her tray holds an apple she won't eat, a paper cup of milk sweating down its sides. She slides to the periphery and becomes part of the furniture, just another body caught in the pattern. Her phone camera stares through a curtain of hair. Her pulse measures time against the hum. Jamal takes the route they mapped past the microwaves, along the vending machines, close enough to the table with the varsity jackets to be unavoidable and not quite a challenge. He keeps his chin level. He doesn't smile. His fingers do that small flex fighters learn to hide pain. "Look who found the cafeteria." Tula says. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. Conversation falls around him like leaves leaving the tree. Connor pivots his chair to block the aisle without looking up from his plate. Brad tilts his head, the grin easy, the knuckles already whitening where his hand grips the table's edge. "Lunch," Jamal says. "Same as you." "Doubt it," Connor says, and the boys around him chuckle for him on cue. New routine. Tuller asks, "Saw you near the gym lately." "Getting those steps in. Cardio's good for the heart," Jamal says. He hears it as he says it. The line that won't be forgiven. Very health conscious. Tyler lifts his water bottle and studies the plastic, like it might announce a warning label. "You'll need your strength." Nia checks the screen in her palm. Audio levels pulse in blue, the waveform lifting when laughter spikes. She shifts her weight. Heel on the seam, where 2 tiles meet and don't agree. The apple skin squeaks under her thumb. "Tell you what," Tyler continues. Since we're all about wellness and school spirit, he taps 2 fingers on the table. A tiny drumline. "Why don't you make an announcement for us? Quick speech. Inspire the room." Jamal breathes through his nose and counts to 4. He counts back down. His backpack strap digs a clean line into his shoulder. The red dot inside keeps time. "No," he says. A pocket of quiet opens, oval-shaped. Right around them, trays hush onto plastic. Forks stop. The DJ in the corner gives up on his speaker, and the song dies mid-beat. For a second, the whole room hears air move. Shy today, Tula says, and leans in. That's okay. I'm a patient guy. Brad's gaze drops to the zipper of the backpack. He doesn't know what he's seeing until he does. His face goes from bored to bright. Yo, he says, low, to Tyler. Look at his bag. Tyler follows the line of Brad's finger zipper. Mesh. A tiny glass eye catching fluorescent, the mask slips. The pleasant goes quiet. A vein ticks in his temple like a second hand. You recording, he says. Jamal says nothing. He doesn't have to. It's in his shoulders. It's in the way his throat swallows once. Hard. And stays dry. You little archivist, Connor says, the word coming out wrong, like he tried arsonist and lost the map. He's up now, chair legs, scraping the tile with a scream that makes heads turn. That's entrapment. Big word, someone mutters. It might be Nia. It might be courage. Public space, Nia says. Louder. Stepping in. No expectation of privacy. I expect respect. Tuller says. He stands. The room breathes with him. Phones appear like gulls. Back off, Nia says. Or what? He smiles again. Too many teeth. You'll curate a better angle. Brad reaches for the strap. The move is fast and sloppy. His fingers snag mesh. Miss. Come again. The backpack dips off Jamal's shoulder and hits his hip. Don't touch my stuff, Jamal says. It's not big, but it's the first line he draws with his mouth in front of everyone. Make me, Brad says. Nia is already moving. Her body remembers 100 rounds of drill, the weight shift, the angle. She slides, the tray tilting, the milk eddying in a perfect white ring, and the heel of her hand hits Brad's wrist at the hinge. The strap jerks free. Brad hisses and grabs for her phone instead, which is what he always wanted. Stop, she says, and it's a warning, not a plea. He lunges. The quiet breaks. Her left slips between ribs, higher than a gut shot, lower than a heart. The air leaves him like a word he can't pronounce. He drops to one knee, not from drama, but because knees do what lungs tell them. A fork clatters somewhere, a bright, stupid sound. You saw that, someone says. She hit him. She warned him, someone else says. Their voice shakes. Tyler doesn't look at Brad. His eyes never leave Jamal. You think you're clever? He says softly. You think you can cut tape and make me the monster? Jamal glances at Nia, a quick flash of yes, and then back. You do your own editing, he says. Tyler's smile goes tight. Last lesson. He steps in with a punch meant to end the conversation. Jamal's head isn't there when the fist arrives. He's not fast, not flashy, just gone from that inch of air. The punch skims fabric and heat. Jamal's shoulder turns. His weight sets on the line of his back foot, like it learned something, and his right hand answers in the space Tyler left open. Not hard. True. What the Tyler's breath clips off. His eyes find surprise, and then override it with rage. Connor arrives at speed, head down, arms wide, a tackle without a field. Jamal drops his hips and lets the shove skid past, shoes squealing on tile. And Connor careens into a table. Milk explodes in a white arc across the floor. The stream runs in a thin line between tiles and disappears into a crack like a map of rivers. No one bothers to fix. For a heartbeat, everything stops. It's the stillness before a storm in movies, the one where the dog cocks its head. The curtains lag in the wind. Nia feels it in the space under her sternum where you keep oldest fears. Tyler's fist lifts again. Brad's breath scrapes back. Connor gathers himself with a snarl. Then the room goes loud. Hands grab. Bodies shove. A chair tips into a leg. A shout collects followers. The air is hot now. Grease and panic and adolescent perfume. Nia blocks a wild swing with her forearm sting. Bright and honest. Then angles in to steal Brad's reach and give it back to him as pain. He folds but holds, and his palm flashes up with a scatter of salt packets. He rips open with his teeth, flinging white into her eyes. It's not much more theater than tactic, but instinct throws her elbow up anyway. The world smears for a blink. She closes, clutches, and turns, using the table to pin him with all the gentle care of a mechanic working a rusted part. Enough. She breathes into his ear. Enough. Across the table, Tyler swings again. Humiliate now. Jamal ducks. Not as clean, catches a glancing hit that rings his jaw with static. His glasses bite the bridge of his nose and hold. He answers with a jab that doesn't travel far enough, and then remembers the line back foot dry and corrects it. The next shot lands. He feels it up his arm. A train arriving. Break it up. A voice barks. Another. Now. Adults appear in stripes and sensible shoes. Security. A coach. A math teacher who once played college ball before the knee. They are too late and exactly on time. Hands pry. Space opens. The grid reappears beneath their feet like nothing happened to it. Everyone is panting. Everyone is pretending they aren't. Tyler straightens himself like a man exiting a pool and smiles for history. We were just talking. He tells the nearest camera they overreacted. Enough. The security guard says, louder. Office. All of you. Naya's eyes burn. The milk sticky on the floor smells like a kindergarten classroom at nap time. Her knuckles are a red she didn't plan for. She picks up her phone, thumb brushing the cracked corner of the case, as if it were a cut on someone she knows. On the walk, the hallway amplifies sound. Top lockers rattle when doors slam shut 3 rooms away. Tyler drifts close enough for breath to register. You crossed a line, he says without moving his mouth. Nya doesn't look at him. You drew it. In the office, the fluorescent lights are better at being bright than being kind. The secretary hands out forms with the muscle memory of a commuter offering transfers. Write what happened, she says, not asking. Principal will see you in order. Jamal's pen skates, then slows, then stops. He breathes once, twice, and writes again, smaller. Nia's page collects a paragraph that reads like a police report made by someone who respects nouns. Brad scribbles like the paper offended him first. Connor writes his name and leaves the rest for lawyers. Tyler doesn't touch his pen. When the door opens, the principal's smile is set to civic duty. He points them to chairs arranged for problems larger than any one of them. The rest is procedure. The kind that sounds like fairness until you meet it. Words get said, they all hear them. Some are true, some are heavy, some land nowhere and still brood. Outside, after, the slip in Nia's hand flaps in the conditioned breeze, like a small official flag. 3 days. A reason written in a careful font that doesn't believe in nuance. At the bottom, a line waits. Sign, the secretary says from her window, right there. The dotted rule runs under Nia's name like a road they promised would take her somewhere. Her pen hesitates above it, casting a thin shadow that looks darker than it is. Jamal signs his copy with a hand that doesn't shake and sets the pen down like it might rearrange the universe if he lets it. Outside, the corridors are strangely quiet. The grid extended through empty air. They step into it. Sunlight lays long, straight bars across the pavement through the blinds. Neat little cells of afternoon. Nia folds the paper once along the line and slides it into her bag. The crease sharp, the edge exact. We knew it would cost. Jamal says, worth it. She asks. He doesn't answer right away. The wind lifts a strip of caution tape tied to a sawhorse by the gym and lets it click and fall. Somewhere a bell rings for a class they won't attend. Yeah, he says finally, but the bill just started. They walk, their shadows staying on their own sides until the path turns and the lines cross whether anyone wants them to or not. The video loops on the television, grainy phone footage, fluorescent glare, a white arc of milk breaking on tile like surf. The living room smells like coffee, gone cold, and lemon cleaner drying on wood. Nia sits forward on the couch, elbows on knees, The suspensions slip a stiff rectangle under her palm. Mute it, her mother says. Angela paces like she's wearing a groove in the rug, soft slippers whispering at the edge of the lamp's yellow pool. Her voice stays low, steady. The way you talk to skittish dogs or bad memories you don't want to wake. I'm proud you stood your ground when he grabbed your phone. She adds, I'm not proud of what came after. Naya swallows, the sound too loud. The house is quiet enough to hear the refrigerator kick on and off like a distant generator. She taps the slip's crease with one nail and watches the cursor blink on her phone. One blink. Two. I didn't start it. She says, no. Angela answers. Posture, straightening at the window like someone expecting headlights. But you're the one who has to live with what happens next. On the television, the moment slows, as if the software knows what matters and wants to keep everyone there. Nia's fist hits. Brad drops. The room turns. A caption crawls across the bottom, no punctuation, all certainty, and then 100 comments stack like falling bricks. Famous, Angela says, dry, despite herself. If only it paid for college. Nia huffs something like a laugh and scrubs her face with both hands. The phone chimes once, cheerful. Wrong. Unknown number. Just 4 words. Black letters on white. This isn't over. Her thumb hovers a half second, then takes a screenshot and hands the phone to her mother. Angela reads, nods once, and reaches for her keys the way a surgeon reaches for a scalpel. We're filing a report. She says, now. At the station, the air smells like copier, toner, and nervous sweat. The lobby is all glass and glued-down chairs, clean like a dentist's office trying to be a courtroom. An officer with a sunburned nose and tired eyes listens while he types the clack of the keys. A metronome that refuses to take sides. He checks the message, shrugs half an inch, and leans back until his chair complains in plastic. Could be some kid blowing off steam? He says, it's a threat. Angela says, the words have edges. He raises a palm in apology that doesn't apologize. It's vague. We can document it. But until there's a specific intent, there's not much we can do. They sit in the quiet that follows. The clock over the window ticks loud enough to be rude. A flyer curls off a corkboard. The pushpin lost long ago. Document it, Angela says. They leave with a copy of nothing, dressed like something. Outside, the night air is damp, and the parking lot lights buzzing like insects that learned English and only say one syllable. Nia looks at the bright grid the light throws on the asphalt and thinks how easy it is to draw lines you never intend to enforce. Across town, another living room glows. Leather couch, glass table, framed degrees on walls that don't know about dust. Tyler sits small in an expensive room, the cut on his lip almost elegant. His father stands rain-still by the mantel, fingers tented under his chin, the act of thinking polished to a performance. This will haunt us through November, Michael Mitchell says. His voice is silk in public and sandpaper at home. He doesn't shout. He peels. I can't campaign on order when my son is the brawl. They filmed us, Tula says. He keeps his eyes on the glass table, as if the reflection has answers. They set us up. Michael's mouth twitches around a word he doesn't say. His wife sits with perfect posture in an armchair that matches the curtains and says nothing at all. The silence in this house has expensive taste. You don't give people ammunition, Michael says. You make them shoot blanks. I didn't. Tyler starts, then stops when the look lands. The room tightens around them, air losing a few useful molecules. We will handle optics. Michael says, each word placed like a chess piece. We will handle the board. You will stay quiet. For how long? Tyler asks. And in it, there's the kid who used to win just by existing for as long as it takes. Michael says. He smooths an invisible wrinkle from his tie, then smooths another from the space behind his eyes. Some things are dealt with quietly. You'll learn that. He leaves Tyler with his reflection and a taste in his mouth that isn't blood and isn't clean. The front door closes with a latch he's heard his whole life and never noticed until tonight. On the third day, the house feels too neat. Nia's books stack at right angles on the kitchen table. The blinds make narrow white bars of mourning on the floor. The boxing bag in the garage swings once without anyone touching it, as if a draft changed its mind. She meets Jamal at the gym. Iron Will smells like canvas and rubber and sweat, soaked so far into the bricks it grew a pension. The bell over the door is a polite ding that still sounds like a warning. Coach Martinez wraps his hands with tape that whispers and watches them both like a man measuring boxcars before a storm. "You brought the weight down?" he asks. Jamal nods. His cheeks are mottled where the bruise is fading, the kind of yellow you don't see in fruit. He lifts his chin too straight and exhales through his nose like he's pushing out a ghost. "Good," Martinez says. "Now, bring it back up the hard way." They work drills until language stops mattering. Pads thump, rope slaps rhythm into concrete. Chalk dust hangs in the sunstripe from a cut skylight. Nia's knuckles sing a steady song, while Jamal's feet learn a new alphabet on worn circles of paint. Between rounds, the gym quiets that particular way a body does after violence. Air holding its breath for no reason. "You're thinking like prey," Martinez says when they lean against the ropes and the world rocks them a little. "I need you to think like problem solvers." "Evidence," Jamal says. "A reflex. It sounds flimsy here in front of canvas. We've been collecting." "For who?" Martinez says. He taps 2 fingers against the top rope, and the tape makes a small drum. "You waiting on a night to ride in? Somebody's mama on a board?" You've seen their answer. "Fighting gets us expelled," Nia says. "Maybe." He squints toward the far wall like he can see the future painted crooked there. "Maybe standing still gets you buried." Her phone buzzes on the bench like a trapped fly. She doesn't want to pick it up and her hand does anyway. Traitor to her nerves. New number again. Cleaner font this time. 7 words. No punctuation. "We know where you train. Be careful." The world narrows to the rectangle of that screen. The gym goes man-made quiet again. Electric hum, and someone coughing in the back office. Outside, a truck shifts, gears and drags sound over asphalt like a chair. Martinez reads. His face doesn't change. So they watch. He says, "Good. Let them learn something. They're escalating," Jamal says. He's not whispering, but the words lie flat. "No," Martinez says. "They're telegraphing." He unhooks the top rope and lets it snap back into place. The sound a clean line in air. "You can keep letting them pick the time and the place," he adds, softer now, like it's a question he's been sharpening for years. "Or you can choose." Nia rollers her thumb over the phone's cracked corner, feeling the groove like a worry stone. She sees a hallway, a cafeteria, a principal's shrug. She sees a party balloon of a boy blowing up in his own house, and a father pin puncturing facts one at a time. She sees the line she's been told not to cross, and the one she's been pushed over. "What does choosing look like?" she asks. Martinez nods at the ring. The canvas is scuffed, where 10,000 feet have said yes and no. White tape marks the center. A box. Inside a box, a map someone invented and then trusted. "You set terms," he says. "You set witnesses. You set light." He lets that sit. In the quiet, they both hear the ice machine in the back dump a tray into something hollow. "Not a brawl," Jamal says. "A demonstración. Call it what you want." Martinez says, "Call it the last lesson." The door opens, and the afternoon heat pushes into the cool like a boast. A kid from the neighborhood pokes his head in, sees them, and backs out quick, like he stepped into church in the wrong clothes. "Careful," the kid tells the air. They're serious in there. Later, at the edge of the school parking lot, the world looks deceptively soft. The asphalt breathes heat. Dandelions try their luck by the fence. A maintenance shed throws a clean blue shadow that changes angle the longer you stare. Nia and Jamal stand where the security camera's view ends and the lines fade into guesswork. "Why here?" Jamal asks. Nia points to the blind spot, the chain link hum, the place where adults forget to look. "Because he thinks this is his, because it used to be," he says. She nods once. "Slow. Because we're taking it back." They don't talk about what happens if they don't talk about who calls who when bones bruise wrong or teeth chip. They don't practice the speech for a detective with tired eyes, or the opening line for a reporter whose lipstick doesn't smudge. The plan is thin by design, a time, a place, a line everyone can see. Before they leave, they walk to the gym one more time. Martinez shows them the simplest trick he knows, the one every fighter forgets when the blood sings. "Don't let your feet lie to your hands," he says. "Don't let your heart lie to your head." He taps the center tape with a knuckle. The sound is a small drum, remade. "And when you cross the line, mean it." At home, the house is darker than it should be, with daylight still out. Angela sits at the table with her laptop open and 3 tabs alive, all of them talking at once. She looks up, searches Nia's face, as if maps are printed under skin, and sighs like someone setting down a weight you can't see. "Eat," she says, "then sleep." "I might not," Nia says. "Try anyway," Angela says. She reaches for Nia's hand and rubs the place between thumb and first finger like it aches. "You don't win anything tired." Night finds them anyway. On the dresser, the suspension slip lies where she left it. The crease now, a permanent seam that won't smooth out. She stares at it until the lines blur and shift into road markings, into ropes, into birds on a wire waiting for a weather the forecast never promises. Her phone lights the ceiling in a pale rectangle. For a beat, she imagines smashing it to silent glass. For another, she imagines the next message braver. Ulier. Specific. Neither comes. She lets the light go dark and counts her breath until it stops being a chore. Morning will come loud. The bell will lay bars across the halls again, and feet will fall in patterns recognizable from far away. Somewhere, a door will open too fast. Somewhere, a car will idle too long. Somewhere, a boy will touch his lip like the cut might have healed since the last time he checked, and find out it hasn't. On the canvas, the white tape waits, a line pretending it doesn't have a history. The parking lot draws a white seam through heat. Sun warps the far fence into a slow shimmer, the maintenance shed throwing hard-edged shade like a block on a blueprint. Oil smell, stale fry grease from the cafeteria vents, and the faint sugar of cut grass mix in the air until it tastes like after school. Nia toes the painted line where the camera's eye dies, and the blind spot begins, feeling the grit grind under her sneaker. "We keep it here," she says. Her voice stays level like a spirit level set on a sill. Jamal nods without looking at her, knuckles pinched white, where his fingers worry the strap of his backpack as if it's a rosary that might grant a different answer if held tighter. From the second-floor gym office window, a rectangle of dark glass blinks, once the agreed signal, then stills. Tyler texts at 3. Shirtsi. The phone buzzes against Nia's palm with a small rodent heart. "Be there. Don't run." She imagines him choosing the words with the same precision he uses to pick cufflinks, performative restraint, bending over a rage he thinks is expensive enough to hide. She breathes in slow through her nose and tastes metal off the vents. At 3:20, the school empties into light. A door slams somewhere behind the bleachers. A skateboard rattles down concrete, and laughter spikes, then dissolves. The sound of immunity. A breeze slides a napkin past Nia's shoe, the white thin square flapping once before, plastering itself to the hot asphalt like a surrender flag no one asked for. She doesn't move. They arrive without hurry. Tyler first, posture loose and casual, a Letterman jacket over his shoulder, the way a man in a car ad carries a suit coat after closing a deal. Connor lopes 2 steps behind, eyes already cutting around for witnesses that aren't there. And Brad does that wrestler's roll in his shoulders, like he's warming something mean. They smell like cologne and arrogance and cafeteria pizza. Brave texting a king. Tuller says, he smiles like a billboard. All enamel and no temperature. His gaze touches the shed, the shadow, the seam of white paint under Nia's shoe, and then drifts back to her face like none of it matters enough to stay. Thought you'd moved on to performance art. You wanted a conversation. Nia says, her hands hang loose. Tape goes still wrapped around her joints in memory. We're here. The word we lands and holds. 2 beat long. And it makes something flicker at the edge of Tyler's eye like a gnat. He can't swat in public. Jamal shifts his weight and plants it. He has no glasses. His eyes look larger, bare and bright and fixed. He says nothing, because there's nothing to say that hasn't already been catalogued, and the not saying forms a wall where his spine meets his shoulder blades. The sun slides out from behind a slow cloud and polishes the BMW's hood to mirror terms. Taylor asks, mocking the syllable. The wind lifts the hair at Nia's temple, the smallest measurable amount. In the open, she says, hands where everybody can see. You talk straight. Then you walk. The last word has the snap of a jab, and for a second the world is just the space between 2 bodies, and a line that doesn't care who drew it. Connor snorts. It's almost a laugh. What is this? Debate team, he says. He takes 2 steps forward into the light, so his freckles show like a constellation half smudged by sweat. You don't set terms. Actually, Nia says, I do. He's close enough now for her to see the scar on his chin from some old childhood fall that didn't cure him of momentum. Tyler opens his hands in a mimicry of peace and takes a half step, so he stands exactly on the stripe, his sneaker sole bisecting the white. You step into our house, he says, voice softened for a microphone that isn't here and still somehow is, and expect manners. Nia watches his mouth and not his eyes. Say it plain. She tells him, for once. A moment stretches until it thins. The cicadas in the trees behind the lot buzz hard enough to sand the edge off every consonant anyone speaks. Tyler's jaw moves, then stills, then moves again. You don't belong here, he says. The words are soft, as a curse smothered with a pillow. That's the plainest it gets. His smile returns. Ravenues now. Appetite unchecked by lessons learned in living rooms. You could eat dinner off of. You want me to go on? No. Jamal says, finally. It lands quiet and clean. He steps so the sun catches on the short curls of his hair and throws a faint halo where it shouldn't, and he puts his heel behind the line like a pin driving into wood. I've heard the extended version. Tyler blinks once and the softness leaves. You made me look small, he says, and underneath the can poise, there's the truth, at last, raw and wet and untrained. You did that. He tips his chin toward the gym window and past it to wherever a city keeps its rumor machines. Today we fix scale. Brad grins and cracks his knuckles. The sound is fake. More air than bone. More theater than threat. He steps right to cut a triangle around Jamal, and Connor steps left to make a mirror, and Tyler stands dead ahead, like a centerfold of menace measured in inches. Nia shifts her feet, weight on the balls, remembering a voice telling her not to let her feet lie. The wind dies and heat takes the air back. Last chance, she says, and here's Coach again. The sentence as simple as a chalk line. Walk away. Tyler's mouth opens to wrap around a joke that would land in a different movie, but the joke never exits. Connor moves. He doesn't telegraph as much as he did in hallways, but he still weds anger to inertia and throws his shoulder like a gift. Jamal's feet do not lie to his hand. He drops, pivots, and drives a compact hook into the soft below Connor's ribs, a lesson curved into action. And the sound that comes out of Connor is surprise first and pain second. Okay, Brad says, delighted. He lunges at Nia with both hands like the ring is mud wrestling. And she isn't. She slides left and taps his sternum with a jab that edits his grin. The world jumps frames. Hand on jacket. Skid of rubber. The tiny spray of gravel when shoes lose direction. Tyler swings. Finally done with monologue. And the air splits where Nia's head was a heartbeat ago. Motion eats the lot. Jamal gives ground when he must. Small steps that say, calculation. Then takes it back with two-punch punctuation that feels like writing for the first time he owns the pen. Connor bleeds at the lip, wipes it with his wrist, and looks offended his face would dare betray him. Brad barrels, misses, swears, and clatters shoulder first into the BMW's mirror, which shivers like it almost breaks but decides not to yet. Nia keeps her breath small and useful. Tyler is faster than he pretended to be. He feints high and cuts low, testing for breaks. For the moment, she'll bite on a lie. She doesn't, and when his fist skims her shoulder, she lets the spin. He gave her turn into torque and clips his solar plexus with 2 straight shots, remembering how the bag sounded when she hit it clean. You really think, he says, and loses the air. He folds for a second, eyes going animal. And in that blink, Brad recovers and grabs Nia around the waist from behind, crushing ground and sky into one line at her throat. Her vision whitens at the edges, not fear but physics, and a tiny black speck hovers in the glare like a fly she cannot name. The fly is a lens midpoint. The motif shifts. The painted seam under their feet stops being an idea and upgrades to a witness. Nia feels it in her toes as she digs for purchase, the rough grit anchoring, and she remembers the sentence's second half. Mean it? She stomps Brad's instep, hard and twice, peels his fingers, drops, and heaves him over her hip with emotion, coach drilled until it lived in her bones like a second marrow. A stillness opens in the fight. It's brief, a breath before a plunge. You can hear the HVAC kick, a far-off car horn, the whisper of flags on the poles by the front entrance, doing almost nothing in almost no wind. Jamal's chest leans against the shed, the cinder block scraping his shirt, and Connor's forearm bites across his throat in an ugly choke that's mostly panic, and shows it. Jamal's eyes find the curb. A chalk-daubed maintenance marking runs along it, a rough pale line. And for a second, it is a memory of tape on canvas and the center he was told to return to when he had nothing left. He slides his hips, plants feet on rough concrete, and drives his elbow back again and again into Connor's ribs until the grip loosens into air. The strangled breath he takes after sounds like he borrowed it. Tyler recovers into cruel. He kicks at Nia's shin and grazes, then feints, and finally lands a crack to her mouth that shocks tears into her eyes without her consent. She tastes rust and salt and refuses the outstretched hand Payne offers. You don't get to win, he says, rage back in costume as contempt, and he means more than a fight. No, she says through blood. Then she steps in, not away, crowding him with quiet, and the combination is workmanlike and rude left to move his guard, right cross to make him doubt he owns his jaw, left hook to rib, because breath is the real landlord, until he backpedals into sun and squints like the day woke up on him. For a second, he looks young. What the hell is going on here? The voice cracks like a starter pistol and stops everything without touching it. Coach Martinez stands where the black glass was, his phone up, his arm steady in a way that comes from hours doing one thing until you alter gravity. The red dot on the screen looks trivial and irreversible. Everyone freezes in their latest truth. Brad, on his knees, one shoe untied and forgotten. Connor with his hand pressed to his side as if he could hold pain, and Jamal with his chest heaving and his eyes clear and furious and not lost. Tyler with his mouth half open, the polite sentence dying on the vine. Step back, Martinez says. His voice is even as a plumb line. Now, He adjusts the zoom with his thumb, and the tiny mechanical sound is more intimate than anyone here deserves. Somewhere on the street beyond the gate, a siren wakes and thinks about this direction. Tyler does the math slow. "You can't use that," he says. "It isn't to the coach, it's to the universe. You can't." He hears the way it sounds and swallows and drags the jacket off his shoulder, with a motion meant to look like reset, and reads more like smallness returning to where it was born. The siren decides. It turns into the lot with a yawing Doppler and lights that paint the asphalt in red-blue slashes, new lines cutting the old one. A strobing geometry that rearranges faces into strangers. Officer Rodriguez steps out, the door left open to bleat its warning back at the world, and lets his hand rest near the gun without making a point of it. "Everybody right there," he says. He takes in shoes, blood, distance, and the way silence sits after shouting, the way it always tells on people. Martinez raises the phone and doesn't move any closer. As if distance is another kind of testimony, the officer's gaze lands on the device and softens by 1 degree you almost can't see. "We have video," the coach says. He doesn't lift his chin at the window where it all began. He just lets the notion be a fact in the heat and the stink and the shiver of police light. Nia tastes iron and breathes out and tastes nothing for a second, the air pure for the first time today. "Okay," Rodriguez says. He steps forward, careful, like he's walking through glass dust. He can't see. Behind him, the second cruiser rolls in and kills its siren, letting the neighborhood's normal noises tiptoe back like kids testing a pool. Somewhere a sprinkler hiccups to life and ticks against a chain-link rhythm no one ordered. Tyler shifts his weight back onto the painted seam. The white is scuffed where the lot lives, where tires bite, where feet argue. He looks like a boy who wants his father, and a man who wants a lawyer, and a statue who wants pigeons to stop choosing his head, all at once. "You're making a mistake," he says, but he doesn't seem sure who he's telling. Rodriguez doesn't answer yet. He takes the phone and watches, and in the tiny reflected world, words are plain and fists honest, and the line underfoot isn't metaphysics. It's a scale, it holds weight. When the cuff clicks somewhere to Nia's left metal teeth on metal notch, small and final, it isn't hers, and the sound runs down her spine anyway. Coach lowers the camera. Wind pushes a hot breath over the lot and lifts the edge of a flyer on a lamppost, making it flap like fish gills. The red-blue strobe keeps cutting the white seam, turning it to purple and then back to truth. Nia stands on her side of the line, mouth bleeding, shoulders squared, and for the first time all day, her feet are still. The tape goes up in one quick snap. Yellow bites across the parking lot like a fresh-drawn caution line. Sunlight catching the plastic so it shivers and hums. Nia watches the strip twitch in the heat and feels the invisible boundary turn real under her shoes as officers carve order out of noise with colored nylon and practiced gestures. They process the scene like a machine. Gloves pop, pens scribble, radios murmur tight little secrets that travel faster than people, and the red-blue wash keeps sawing the afternoon into uneven pieces. Jamal sits on the curb where shade begins, hands folded between his knees, the way you hold something that might break, each breath hitching. And then evening under a count only he hears. Detective Sarah Williams arrives with a thermos and a stare. She's mid-40s, scar on the eyebrow like a punctuation mark, pants that don't care about dust, and a patience you can see from 3 steps away. "Phones," she says, and Coach Martinez lifts his like a chalice, while Nia unlocks hers with a sweaty thumb and a small click that feels like permission leaving her body. Inside the patrol car, the video plays. The screen throws soft light on faces that lied a lot today, and the audio clean, cruel, specific draws a quiet from the cluster of uniforms that isn't sympathy and isn't surprise. "We'll take statements," Williams says, without looking up, And the way she says it sounds like closing a door you don't plan to reopen until you've moved houses. Do I get extra credit for this? Jamal tries. His mouth twitches toward a smile, and then forgets how. But the attempt floats, odd and brave, until it gets a small huff from Officer Rodriguez that might be almost a laugh. Just breathe. Kid. The man says, not unkind, and the word kid lands gentle in a place that's been hard all day. Parents arrive in waves that smell like coffee and cologne. Doctor. Patricia Thompson wears her courtroom on her shoulders and her worry in her hands. Nails. Tapping a brief tattoo against a leather folder before she stills them. Angela Washington brings the city with her, the iron of train tracks and the cotton of clean towels, and puts a palm on Nia's back, so firm it feels like a spine behind a spine. Forms are slid across a trunk that doubles as a desk. Lines wait for signatures where names will bite and hold. And every S and W looks heavier than it should under the afternoon glare. Nia's pen scratches her Washington, like it's always scratched it, but when she dots the I, her hand shakes, and she sees it tiny, ridiculous wobble on the yellow copy. The Mitchells pull up in a black car that believes in itself. Michael Mitchell steps out first. T perfect, jaw set like a verdict, and he walks 3 feet too close to the tape like he's never met a line he didn't make. Detective, he says, voice soft and sharp. In the how dare you, wrapped in pleasantry like a gift box with a knife inside. This area's closed? See. Williams answers. She doesn't raise her voice, and she doesn't move. And for the first time today, Nia watches a grown man meet a limit he can't negotiate down. Body cams on. Rodriguez adds from the side, almost like a service announcement, and the DA recalibrates so fast you can hear gears grind under his suit. Principal Harris appears late with a smile that isn't. He sweats through the collar of a shirt that wasn't designed for heat and tries to hover near authority without being seen standing there. A habit carved by years of meetings where nothing happened on purpose. We could handle portions of this internally, he offers, words smooth as a fresh floor waxed over mold. No, Doctor, Thompson says, and even the tape listens. Her eyes are knives, but not wild ones. They're kitchen blades kept sharp for a reason and used every day. Your internal handling is how we got here, she adds, and Harris's throat works once, dry, as if swallowing a memo gone sideways. The press colonizes the sidewalk by the front gate. Mic flags bloom like paper flowers, lenses swivel with insect patience, and a long black cable drapes along the grass like a second, rougher tape where civilians gather and whisper. On the televisions inside nearby living rooms, a white line crawls along the bottom of screens. DA's son detained after altercation, at Riverside High letters, marching like they have somewhere to be, whether anyone wants them there or not. Nia and Jamal step toward the microphones because there is no other way through. The air near the hedge smells like cut leaves and hot plastic, and the sun throws light off a metal badge so hard it feels like a heartbeat in the eyes. We told the truth, Jamal says, simple as chalk, and his voice shakes through the first word, and then rests on the rest like he built them. We want to be safe at school, Nia adds. No extras, no sermon, just the one thing, and the way she says it, even and low, makes 2 reporters stop mid-question and look at her, not at the story, at her, as if seeing a person for the first time in a story they wrote yesterday. Williams gives a small nod no one else notices, then angles them gently away before the crowd remembers how to devour. The interview room in the station breathes cold. Fluorescent hum takes up space you can't see, and the glass of water sweats like it's nervous. A ring forming on metal as neat as a coin. A thin red bar advances across the recorder's tiny screen, a single bright line crawling right as Nia answers. Pauses, inhales, and answers again. Did you intend to provoke a fight? Williams asks, "No," Nia says, and the N comes out clean. Despite the split in her lip that complains with each consonant, she glances at Jamal, whose fingers press flat into his thigh under the table until the skin blanches and he lifts them, releases, presses again. Finding a rhythm that isn't panic, Williams plays the audio once more. Tyler's voice scrapes the walls, and Connor's breath sounds like anger with homework. And somewhere in the background, you can hear a flag ping a flagpole in lazy wind, as if America is tapping a pencil during a test. It didn't study for when the video ends. The room is quiet, the way rooms get after music stops, and no one moves because silence has weight now. A knock, then a face at the door that shouldn't be friendly, and is. Connor stands in the hall with a split lip and a phone that looks like it lost a bar fight. Eyes stuck somewhere between stubborn and sorry. "Can I talk?" he asks Nia when Williams gives him a tiny, skeptical opening. And the detective lets him step inside the threshold, but not over it, to the doorframe. An invisible line his sneakers respect. "I didn't know he'd go that far," he says. He looks at his shoe when he says it, and then, braver. He looks at Jamal, and doesn't blink like it's a dare he tries on. "We were supposed to scare you," he adds, voice dropping like he doesn't want to hear it either, and he thumbs at his cracked screen until a group chat blossoms with blue and gray and uglier colors behind it. The messages stack like cheap bricks. A counselor's number Nia recognizes from a wall poster tells someone to keep things quiet until after board review. A staffer offers alternate doors to avoid cameras during incidents, and a contact, saved as M. Mitchell writes, "Remove their recording devices first, then talk." Williams reads fast and slow at once, eyes flicking like scanners, and when she looks up, her face has changed without moving. "Email me that thread," she says. Connor nods hard enough to hurt, and then glances at Nia like he wants absolution and knows it's not for sale. "I'll testify," he blurts, and it sounds less like courage than like someone stepping onto a bridge while it's still being built because the river behind them just ate their house. Night leans against the city by the time they reach the gym. Iron Will's front window holds a spiderweb of fresh cracks that glitter under streetlight, and the door hangs a half-inch off. True, like a punch, taught at Humility. Inside, the rubber mat smells like lemon cleaner and sweat, and the silence has the same shape as a bell that was ringing a minute ago and decided to keep being a bell without making sound. There's a brick on the ring apron. A paper band hugs it wide. White, perfect, with block letters in black marker. "Stay in your lane." The word lane makes Nia taste metal again, and she sets the brick on the canvas like you set down a small, dangerous animal, then peels the tape, smooths it flat, and leaves it on the edge like a label she refuses to let stick. Coach finds the mess with his broom, and his oldest swear. He sweeps glass like he's taught it to leave before, and will again. Each drag of straw across grit, sounding like a tide. Nobody photographs. They think paper lines are maps, he says after a while, not looking at either of them. And the broom flicks a glittering constellation toward the dustpan, as if stars could be shoved into a corner. Nia ducks into the office and opens her locker. Her wrap's the first pair. Rodriguez ever slipped her with a grin when she was 12. Faded blue that used to be sky, hangs shredded on the hook like meat. For a second, everything in her pulls small, down, and in, the way animals do before a storm hits the body, and she stands there listening to the blood in her ears like surf. Coach steps behind her and sets something in her palm. New wraps, stiff and clean. The white so bright, it feels loud, and his hand sits on her shoulder long enough to be a weight and not a pat. "You don't need ghosts to swing," he says quietly, the sentence simple as advice and heavy as a benediction. Nobody rehearsed. They lock up with the door truer than before. Outside, the road offers up its dashed white as they drive, lines stitching night into pieces as headlights cut and cut and can't quite separate anything that mattered from anything that didn't. Jamal watches the lane markers slip under and back, his breath fogging a small oval on the window that clears and returns like it's practicing for winter. "I'm tired," he says into the windshield. He doesn't mean sleep, and he doesn't ask for permission. And Nia nods once, then nods again because there's no cure in the car, only motion and a thin ribbon of paint pointing forward. The city lights up ahead, make a glow you can't conquer and can't ignore. And the tape on the brick on the ring sits in her pocket, folded once, waiting. On the hill above Riverside, the broadcast tower blinks. Red dots walk up the dark in an orderly ladder, each light pulsing a heartbeat set by distant rooms. And the news crawl keeps moving in living rooms where no one knows their names, and everybody says they do. Nia holds the steering wheel soft, the way you hold a hand that's been hurt before, and chooses the next line herself. They mark an X on the stage with blue painter's tape. It glows under the auditorium lights like a tiny runway, wires snaking in straight lines from the microphones to a bank of cameras at the back. The room smells like warm varnish and dusted velvet, and the ceiling vents push a thin river of cold across rows of bodies as the town squeezes itself into one place and pretends that makes it civil. Nia waits in the wings with her hands tucked in her jacket. Her new wraps ride in the pocket like a promise she hasn't opened yet, edges stiff against her palm. A folded strip of white paper, the one she peeled from the brick, rests beside them, and when she presses her thumb to it, she can feel the ridge of the marker letters, like someone tried to draw a boundary and forgot how to spell it. The board members file in with faces set to adult, neckties straight as rulers, name placards squared on the table's edge, and a row of water bottles, sweating in unison, like they trained for this. Principal Harris takes the far seat, a shade paler than his suit, and Detective Sarah Williams sits behind the aisle, legal pad balanced on her knee, eyes soft, mouth unkind. The gavel cracks once like a knuckle. Public comment will be limited, the chairwoman says, which means nothing since noise has already crept up the walls and tucked itself into the curtains. Jamal leans forward one row, elbows on knees, his breath fogging his glasses for half a second before he wipes them with the hem of his blazer like a ritual that never learned to be brave. They go after the microphones like swimmers at a ladder, parents with grievance folders, alumni with selective nostalgia, teachers who say, "learning environment," like it's a hymn. When it's Nia's turn, the blue X looks as silly and holy as a chalk hopscotch, and she steps onto it anyway, the tape tugging at her sneakers. When she stops where the cameras want her to exist, "My name is Nia Washington," she says. Her voice carries without reaching for it, and the way a bell works, because it was made to. "I want to go to class without choosing between being quiet and being alive," she adds, and the sentence lands, simple as a chair, heavy as the person who refuses to move out of it. A murmur rises like wind through brittle grass. Michael Mitchell watches from the aisle, jaw working like he's chewing something tougher than steak. And when he stands, the microphones lean his way, the way dogs lean toward whoever has the car keys. "This spectacle," he begins, voice white glove smooth, "is an unfortunate distraction from educating our children." Sarah doesn't stand. She just lifts one finger, not for him, for the AV kid near the wings, wearing a headset and a shirt that says "crew" in letters as blunt as a shove. The screens on either side of the stage blink, yitter, then fill with a cell phone video, framed by a black border and a shaky thumb. A green room. A doorway. Half a face you know from yard signs. The audio is clean like it hates excuses. "You need to get your lines straight." Michael's voice says from the speakers, unhurried, clipped, "Kill the hallway cams for the budget cycle. Move the complaint forms to counseling, and keep the ones from those two in a separate folder. We're not feeding a narrative. The room changes shape without moving. Reporters sit taller. Board heads tilt like sunflowers tracking a cloud. Harris blinks twice, in a way that says he's counting how fast paper burns when you feed it through a shredder that swears it's off. The broadcast slows for a second. As the phone jostles, then the voice comes silk-soft again. We'll draw the map. They'll walk the line. Jamal's whisper tilts at Nia's shoulder. Guess he likes lines. It's a joke, so dry it's almost smoke, and it keeps both of them upright. Nia's mouth twitches, then sets. And for a beat, the whole house hears nothing but the projector fan and the carbonated itch of panic popping somewhere near the front row. The chairwoman swallows into her mic. "Mr. Mitchell," she says, throat tight around the Mr. "When was this recorded?" He smiles toward the ceiling like it has better answers than the floor and starts a sentence with, "This is out of context," which is what people say when context is a cliff and they've already driven off it. Williams stands now. Timestamp and metadata confirm the date, she says, and the word metadata somehow sounds like daylight. The recording was provided by a volunteer who, after our subpoena, declined to be invisible. She steps aside, and a counselor from the back, Miss Carmody, the one who used to staple "Be Kind" posters, with hands that shook, moves down the aisle like a person who forgot to be afraid this morning and decided not to go back for it. I archived what I was told to. "Miss," Carmody says into the third mic. Her hair is pulled into a plain knot that looks like work, and her nails are unpolished and clean. "It made me sick. I'm sorry." She blinks hard once and steps away before the room can calcify her into either a hero or a villain, because somehow she knows both are ways of not listening. Harris clears his throat like a man about to swallow his own tie. "We can address administrative procedures," without he starts and then stops, because the AV kid is at it again, and the screens roll chat screenshots in neat verticals, a group text with staff logins, and a thread from M. Mitchell suggesting alternative entrances for sensitive students on assembly days. Someone in the cheap seats laughs like they didn't mean to. The board retreats to the back for deliberation. The word floats uselessly over a low roar as pockets of quiet appear like islands, two freshmen sharing headphones, a custodian with his cap in his hand, a camerawoman checking her batteries with the same care you use on a sleeping child. Nia steps off the tape and into the side hall, where the fluorescent light hum is louder than voices. She rests a finger along a painted stripe on the cinder block. It's a waist-high safety band. Safety yellow, now gone mustard with years. Nicked, where moving carts kissed it learning how to turn. Her breath fogs the glass of the trophy case for a second before it clears, and she watches a ghost version of her face float up and disappear, as if the school is practicing with her image before it uses it in a brochure. Jamal joins her with a paper cup that sweats. He doesn't speak at first, just bumps her shoulder with his light, like a drum test. "You okay?" he asks finally, and the question sits there, the kind you don't answer. True-false, even if the room longs for a circle filled in dark enough to scan. "No," she says. "Yes." The second word arrives late, but wants to stay, and he nods like he heard both, and forgave the delay. Through the wall, someone laughs too high and too long, the sound of a defense that's outlived its usefulness. The board returns with faces like paper. Motions move. Second. Votes land in rhythm, and somewhere, a pen digs through a duplicate form and scars the wood underneath. Harris is relieved of duty pending investigation. Miss Carmody resigns on her own. Gratitude chasing her out the door, she opens herself. And one more policy drops like a hammer. Zero tolerance for physical altercations. Retroactive. Signatures already drying. They read her name out like a chalk mark. "Miss Washington." The chairwoman says, voice careful around pity, "Your actions, while perhaps understandable, fall within the stipulations of the policy, the expulsion feels both immediate and slow, like the ground moving under a train that hasn't learned yet. And somewhere to her left, a freshman curses quietly into their sleeve. Jamal stands so fast his chair skates back and squeals. That's punishment for telling the truth, he says, low, even surgical. Michael Mitchell smiles again, small and mean, because sometimes the only victory left is the one you buy with someone else's day. Williams watches him smile. The way you look at a stain you plan to remove with a blade. Nia steps back onto the blue X without being asked. I don't accept your policy, she says. The line gets a couple chuckles, like people think she doesn't understand consent and paperwork. And she waits them out like rain. You didn't invite to the picnic. But I accept the cost, she adds, and the room hiccups, because no one told them the hero would pay at the register. Instead of sprinting toward the closing credits, she turns in her ID at the table like she's returning a library book. The plastic clicks against wood, a tiny noise that lands too hard. And the security guard, who has never met her eyes, meets them now and doesn't look away. By the exit, a little boy with a varsity hoodie, 2 sizes too big, stares at her like she is either a fire alarm or the person who pulled it for the right reasons. Outside, late light draws long through the trees. The cement out front wears fresh stripes of white where the district repainted the crosswalk for safety, each band already grained with shoe rubber and grit. Students gather on the steps, as if the bell rang and forgot why. And conversations come in pockets that open and close like fists, learning to be hands. Coach Martinez waits by the curb, pickup idling. He doesn't ask because the answer is draped over her shoulders like an invisible sign, and he doesn't hug her because she's standing. He just opens the passenger door, and the smell of old sweat and lemon oil and something like oranges licks out, and she gets in like she's done 1,000 times after a round that sounded worse than it was. On the ride, they say almost nothing, street after street. The lane markers blink under the headlights like a metronome that counts what's gone and what's ahead without choosing sides. At a long red, a man in a suit with his tie loosened crosses in front of them, carrying a potted plant, and the pot leaves a dry line of dust on his hip that will print on a chair later and tell a small, true story to no one. They stop at the gym that doesn't ask questions. The night breeze pulls through the cracked window with a smell that's half river, half hot asphalt. And they sit in the dark long enough to let the hum of the soda machine become a kind of music. Nia takes the folded white paper from her pocket and tears it once. Then again. The piece is neat. Even useless. What now? Jamal asks from the back, voice soft. Now we keep walking, she says. It isn't brave and it isn't sad. It's just the only map they own. She pulls out the new wraps at last and winds them slow around her hand. Linen crossing skin in pale rails. Lines that look like borders until you remember they're there to let you hit without breaking. Back at the school, the cameras stay. Inside living rooms, lower thirds crawl until they loop, then crawl again with a new verb. And in certain offices, men find out what a hot mic is and how quickly a line can turn into a noose you tie yourself. In the morning, someone will chalk messages on the crosswalk bands, and someone will scrape them off, and both will think they are drawing the future. Night thickens like a crowd that decided to be kind. The broadcast tower on the hill blinks its red dots one after another. A straight ladder to a darkness that doesn't promise or warn, just is. Nia steps down from the ring, crosses the taped edge without looking at it, and lets the door close behind her with a clean click. The room can keep like a heartbeat. It borrowed and finally learned.